Well, thank you all for taking part in the second part, the second day of this workshop. As you've seen, we have a no-name workshop, so that we are expecting to put a name among everyone. It has been difficult to put a name because there has been a lot of diversity. We can't fit it within the part of cities, towns, or etc. But there are three speeches, quite interesting speeches. I'll introduce myself, and I'll introduce the center in which I work, just in case it can be useful. I work in the Centro para el Desarrollo Tecnológico Industrial. My name is Borja Izquierdo, and we provide financing. We are a business public company that gives financing to private companies, so industries, for the execution of research and innovation projects. So every project that has to do with the improvement of technology to improve the accessibility of people with disabilities are more than welcome. And now we'll see some examples, probably not technological, but at a technological level that can be financed through the center in which I work. My name is Borja Izquierdo. I'm in the part of European programs. I'm a little bit weird there, but we touch all the part of intelligent cities, so maybe that's the reason why I'm the moderator in this season, in this meeting. Now we're going to move on to the first speech. It has a short title: Recommendations for Guaranteeing recommendations for guaranteeing the satisfaction of users with visual disability in higher education, and it will be done by Pablo Ribas from the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya. I won't read your curriculum because it's very long. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this workshop. As you can see in the presentation, I've reduced the name, and we'd like to introduce some kind of recommendations for high education institutions and distant education, so that they can improve the experience of the students with visual disability in the university. There are we're talking about some practices from the point of view of the user rather than from the point of view of the teacher. We want to guarantee that his or her experience as a user at a university can be satisfactory. Our university was born in 1995. It's a distance university. It's absolutely online. All the learning is focused on the student, in the sense that he or she has some virtual classrooms where he or she has tools to develop his or her studies, and from there they can access to digital contents, for example, in PDF, in paper, in sound, MP3, etc. And well, here you can see a chart where you can see that from 2011, which are the last available informations, our university has a 33.6% of students with disability in Catalonia. Sorry, we can't see it. We can't see the PowerPoint. Is it possible to have the presentation? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was saying they have more than 33% of students with disability in Catalonia, despite it just has 40,000 students. In this context, we needed to make a research so that we could understand what kind of students with disability are we dealing with, and here we are focusing on students with visual disability. And our principle is that despite the flexibility standards are very important, they not always guarantee that the user experience is satisfactory. In order to guarantee that this experience can be satisfactory, we should observe how the user interacts with technology that is being provided to him or to her. As I've said, we have made a research in which we want to know how is the experience of the student with visual disability in the walk, which terminology he or she uses, how it was used, which problems he or she could find, and we were using a usability test that in the something that now is in the beta stage, which is the web page of the walk. When the user introduces his password, we want to establish a flexibility test with our students, and we have to establish some recommendations and good practices to satisfy this good experience of users. For that, we are using a qualitative approximation. We went to our students' houses so that we could see how they were interacting with the technologies, and we made this test of flexibility. And, well, the final information with all the students that were living in Catalonia that at that time were 17. We couldn't interview people that didn't live in Catalonia. All of them had visual problems. There were 7 men and 10 women, and they were using a magnifier or a screen reader, but it wasn't necessary for them to use a magnificator. Can I see? Can I go back? Well, basically the difficulties that they were finding when they interact with our university are the following. Something that still happens: many materials and contents are not available or are can't be usable. The teachers that prepare the materials with scanned pages from other books, as you know, for a screen reader is complicated, or to use, for example, images without alternative text, or something that I haven't commented is that in our university there's a continuous evaluation, and the teacher every 2 or 3 weeks sends an evaluation activity so that the student can evaluate him or herself. For example, in these evaluation activities, a student told me that in a subject of Latin, the teacher said that they had to, well, the teacher marked different parts of a text with colors so that the students could declinate the verbs. And a student that had a low vision had problems to distinguish between the words, the non-underlined words and the underlined words. The student has to find a solution. He or she can look for help with the teacher of the subject, or he or she can try to do the transformation of these non-accessible materials to accessible materials. In the case of PDFs that are difficult to read with a screen reader, maybe through the characters, some way of recognizing the characters. It's a work that obviously the students have to be updated regarding the readings that they can do. All the students have digital competencies or technological competencies, or they even could go a little bit slower at the time of interacting with a magnificator or a screen reader or whatever. This problem of not being able to access so fast to the educational contents, many students told me that one solution could be to receive the contents of the subjects or the evaluation activities in advance, just to reduce the time that they need to have the materials available. Another problem is that the teacher, he makes them to visit other web pages. Many times these web pages are not accessible, and it has to go outside of the official content of the walk, and it's difficult to access these contents. There are cases of students that are in a learning process of some tools. For example, students that have a vision loss, and they are using magnificators but they are in that moment of starting to use screen readers, but obviously they can't dedicate the same time to the subject, and there's a debate, for example, that the student didn't want to say at the beginning of the course that he has any kind of disability. But there were people that didn't want to say because they didn't want to be treated differently. And when, for example, when they had any kind of problem, they should tell it to the teacher. At least at the walk, these problems are very heterogeneous. Every student has a different method, studying method. They could use a PDF format or in an audio format, and every student has different technological skills. This heterogeneity of this group points out that we have to try to customize a little bit what happens at the university. The problem that I was commenting, the time that has to be invested in obtaining the materials needed. They have to ask for help to the teacher or to their relatives so that they can transform a text, a non-accessible text, in a screen reader. Many times, for example, the parents of a student had to record the text on an MP3 so that it could be listened by his or her son or daughter, and the teachers have also to play an important role. Many teachers don't have very deep knowledge about what accessibility is and what are the solutions when they are facing a problem, and these problems penalize the learning part of the student, the time that they have to invest in obtaining materials, in using some different tools, and it delays the readings that they have to do, the contents, and it could be it couldn't be good for the communication skills or the time that they have to invest in debates or something like that. We have tried to establish some recommendations or some conclusions that could seem a little bit obvious, but we have to insist on some points. For example, we have to give multi-format materials accessible and usable. Well, the common sense many times is the less common of all senses. So why multi-format? Because that way the students can elect the best format for them. If a student prefers the audio, he can use the audio. If another one prefers the PDF, he can use the PDF or a screen reader or these kind of things. He or she can use the best for him or for her. Another point that could be obvious is learning in accessibility for teachers and consciousness. When they're preparing an evaluation activity or some contents, they have to realize that what they are generating is going to be used by students with visual disability. A point that can be interesting is to provide the materials and texts in advance for students that have visual disability, so that they can use a little bit more time to do an exam. It could be a good idea to give the materials a little bit in advance than to the rest of the students.
Then there are alternatives whereby we can, if we think that a video on YouTube or a text is not totally accessible, then we have solutions where our students who can't access to these contents normally could do something, and we can place or have access to such materials from the classroom itself without the student having to ask the teacher to make that material accessible. So now we'll move along to the usability test. I won't go into all of the findings that we had. There are very many, some positive, some negative, but I'd like to say simply that our start start-off page is basically composed of a horizontal menu with services and various modules which allow direct access to various contents that are relevant and important for students, such as email for the university, calendar access, and different classrooms that the student might have. There's a different classroom for each course, and there's a different different things in each classroom, depending on each course. And based on the results that we found, we'd like to say that if a student has sees what's one page for each course, it makes it easier for him. And on the other hand, these modules on our beginning page allow us to use colors to distinguish different things. And for students with impaired vision, it's easier for them to quickly identify where each module is by these colors. Another important thing is that these modules can be organized within the page. You can place them where you would like. And the unifier that's used allows you to place them vertically so that when you're using a modifier and seeing the size of the module on the page, by just moving vertically up and down, you can see a general view of all the different points of interest without having to go horizontally across the screen. That can sometimes be more difficult. Now, just one moment and I'll find my place. Well, here, another important point I should mention is the clear design that is called responsive design. In this case, for those users who use the Zoom on the PC, it's not necessary that they have to use the magnifier, and this makes it's automatically readjusted to the screen size and allows. It doesn't mean that you have to use it's not hard to move within the page. This is something that's advantageous for the adaptation of any page to a mobile device, because it's much easier to make it adaptable to a smartphone or any other mobile device without losing content, of course. And basically, this is all. Now what I would like to do is what we did earlier, is know a little bit more what tools are used and for other disabilities. And I'd also like to say that thanks to this study, we've been able to begin training programs for teachers, and we would like to get to a point where this was mentioned yesterday. We'd like to get to a point where we can profile persons with disabilities and to cite their main features or characteristics and see how this could be useful. There could be key points in interaction for our universities with students here. And if you have any questions, I'll be able to take them later in the question and answer period. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Pablo. Now we'll have a quick, at the end of the session, we'll have a quick question and answer period. So our next speaker is Andres Iglesias Perez, who's coming up with another person, and he'll talk about architecture for interfaces. Andres, you've been working in European networks and TICs ICTs, and we're happy to have you here as part of our organization. Hello. Well, I hope this isn't counting as time for me, but we started, I think, in the University of Extremadura with a project, and from there on out, that marked the beginning of everything we're doing now. We're in European projects in different places, and the truth is, it's a good job, and I have to congratulate everyone involved. And I'd like to put a name to this presentation. It might be called personalization, because one way of solving problems is to have an architecture oriented toward preferences, but preferences is like saying attributes or properties. Preferences is how you store things, and we have considered in the project the possibility of adding interfaces that already exist and can be personalized, including another layer for personalization that can be taken automatically based on the context. In this case, context could be many things, but here with me I have Jonathan Chacon on my right. He is involved in the project with others, and now we'll talk about how the project is right now, how this adding of preferences. What's the solution? What's the current situation? Well, for the ideal solution, we've looked at what would be possible considering what's been doing, and then we're going to say that right now, before it's surprising how we look at each other and at our mobile devices. We feel like we shouldn't be here without checking our mobile devices to see what is coming in from our jobs and offices. So imagine the person, when anyone reaches their workstation in the morning, the first thing they do is open their smartphone, their computer, and look at their emails, and then they have to go to work, leave home, and read, get their ticket for the metro, and then read while they're on the metro traveling. And then finally, they get to their office PC, they sit down, and they have to activate all the personal preferences. Jonathan has to activate the screens that he would like, and all of these things are affected by where you are, what your environment you have, if you have a lot of light, a lot of noise in your environment, someone who's reading their twits, and you could, all the noise, and then it depends on who you're with. It's not the same thing to be in a room with alone as with other people. And sometimes you might be reading a tablet, and someone with a visual impairment might be using a white background with black. When it's dark, the black and white is going to be much more simple to read. But when there's a lot of light, this person would need something else, and would need, I think, the person would, you'll see how the person would need something to help him change the interface for the text of black on white. And in the near future, this is something we hope to solve. Jonathan has just coded this. It's very recent. And what we may have an activated screen reader in the future. We have projects, the seeding project of Day, and there's one that captures the context that with sensors, MOTAs, and our mobile phones are ideal because the smartphones have all these sensors that can capture light and decide how bright or how dim the light is. You have also a microphone for capturing sound. So we have many, many sensors, and we can put sensors everywhere, even on walls and all around in our surroundings. And up until now, the project has been working on capturing the people, for example, in this room, and we have our inbox for email, we have our presentations, but the studies haven't looked at how to improve interfaces. And there are approximations of abstract interfaces and other interfaces that are more specific. And some, we have projects that have been able to change how you see the control panel for the printer. But this is based on who the user is. So our proposal is, why don't we unite our forces and this work of context and this work of personalization be joined together in an interface based on preferences. And as we mentioned earlier, the digital divide is becoming broader and broader, and instead of reducing itself, because we have more and more needs. Someone who wants to work with email, but imagine any interface, someone with a visual impairment or anything is going to find problems to interact even with something as simple as email. But Cloud4all says, well, if we had personalization and with a USB device, we could convert this problem into something completely transparent. And this is what we were saying earlier. Many times we're here, and we're going behind the project, and the industry is going way ahead. So let's turn this around. Let's try in Cloud4all to make a framework that's good for everyone, for any type of development, so accessibility can stop being an enormous effort of going behind each type of software. Let's make all software accessible from the word go. And this would be reducing market time and everything. It's not just complying with laws that have been passed or European legislation. It's about, if you're using Cloud4all, it's going to be easier, and you're going to reach the market quicker if you have this done. You're going to have a lot of things already worked out. And users will understand this, and they will see the interfaces. And it will be easier to reach the market faster, and we can all specialize in what we know how to do best. The user won't have to worry about their web page being seen by certain persons with certain types of disabilities. There'll be a more complex architecture, but this is something that we can do without too much many problems if we all work together and join our forces. What we're talking about, the user can travel to the Cloud4all, and go to a preferences server. And here, in this server, we see that there's a set of the user's preferences stored, needs and preferences. And this information is transferred to the component that has to apply that and do the configuration. And then that's the matchmaker. And then it will go back to the flow manager and show the interface. Our approximation would say, let's use that same architecture internally in a mobile device. And for this case, here we see that the information flow is always, if it's always to the cloud, we have another problem. When you're using a mobile device, the flow up to the cloud has to go through your network, and that will maybe cost something, and the metrics may not always be Exactly right. So we're going to do something smaller, mini matchmaker, and which that will decide whether or not you need to go to the cloud, and it will store small semantics that can say, well, if the glare goes up, let's change some of the characteristics, and if it goes up, changes more, we can go for further help. And now we have to see what type of device it is and the maximum volume that it can handle. And this is important for user interfaces and also the surround the environment. Jonathan has programmed a device reporter, which basically is how we call the different components that read the environment and the device. And then this information is consumed internally by the traffic manager, the flow manager, or you ask for help through an HTTP helper. We have someone from Vodafone for this, and then we use that cloud architecture that we saw earlier. Internally, as future work, we're considering, since we've been able to do this for a mobile device, then we don't think it will be necessary to have sensors in the mobile device. We can have them in the room, and in this case, we call them motes, which is it's almost a joke in Spanish. It means nickname, but mota is a sensor node. But now it's also called smart dust. Well, I've got a mote, and these are particles that can become big amounts of dust, I guess. But if we have a sensor here that says that the glare is 40, and I have another one that says that over there it's 45, which one is affecting me the most? Well, that's something that's worked on in the cloud, and this is all for the future. It is future work, of course, but these are just to give you, these things are to give you an idea of where we are. And I want to apologize for speaking so fast. You just give us 15 minutes to speak, and I understand that because there are many things to talk about. But this is work that's taken us maybe 3 months for us to achieve, and to explain it all in 15 minutes is a very little time. But tomorrow maybe we can see something more about this. But we have a customer, a Twitter customer. I think you'll understand that. We have a Twitter customer, and when there's a lot of glare, all the information can be shown, and you can see the white background here. If I cover the sensors, which is a way for the device to understand that things are dark, then you'll see how there would be a new interface that would come into play. And you don't have to do anything for this. The user, this is totally automatic. Tomorrow we'll see this in more depth, and we'll see things that my colleague has done in HTTP, and for next week this is going to really take off. But before you tell everything I'm going to talk about in my demonstration tomorrow, I'd like to say that the demonstration has been christened, and jokingly, I want gazpacho. And tomorrow you'll understand why we gave it that name. Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. Besides being very instructive, both of the presentations show things that go hand in hand, good practices and user requirements, and then yours was a technological illustration that I have to say I feel so proud to have seen what you're doing, and you have a wonderful experience with these new practices. So congratulations. I'm sorry I won't be able to be here for the demo tomorrow, but I'll find out about it. I'll ask about how it went. And now we've got the last presentation of this session. It's got a shorter name and an acronym, actually. It's a social network for diversity, cognitive diversity. We have Javier Megurza here with us from the Laboratory of Interaction in the Basque Country, who's going to talk about this. I thank you very much, and good afternoon. Guremintza is a word in Basque, and it's the name of our organization. It's our way of speaking, and I'm going to present a social network for persons with difficult cognitive diversity. And I'm in a laboratory and in research that's more associated with automation, but this is something that I've been asked to explain, so here I am. Guremitza is a social network, as I said. It's underway in the group Gurik, which is in the Basque Country, and somehow what it tries to do is integrate persons with disabilities in society, and Guremitza is going to help us learn all about social networks. It's for persons with intellectual disability, and it's been designed in a participatory manner using final end users, and then the objectives are to help the users understand how to use the network, among other things. And given the needs that we have found for helping persons with intellectual disability become familiar with social networks and digital environments, we have founded our existence on this, and also we've also based ourselves on making people and institutions aware of the risk of access that exist from all types of dangers that arise in the social networks. This is a very accessible social network that's oriented towards internal use within a specific organization, and the users could eventually roll this out to other institutions, and it's meant to be using digital competencies and related to the web environment, and we have all the aims that are linked up to aims usually present in social networks. The Basque Country University has a laboratory, and I'll tell you something about it. It's an interaction person-computer laboratory for people with special needs. And I'm in the part that's more, let us say, data mining. In this context, it would be applied to modeling and personalizing interfaces. At technical level, we have the participation of a cooperative called Lotura, and L'Oreal, through development, has helped in the design. And in design, we've seen 6 persons involved mainly, and 4 of them had intellectual disability, but 4 of them were familiar with social networks. The other 2 had no experience with social networks. So they were given some previous training by persons who were making the group more dynamic. And then we had development of functions and interfaces, and we validated different prototypes and based on quality of conditions for decision making. There were no direct questions, but the work was based on little prototypes, paper or such, that would help the user decide what was best for him or her. And this was in the part of development, implementation, and network maintenance. Lotura was involved in this. And the network has four main parts. Each one has its own color to distinguish each. One part is associated with the profile of the user and personal information that the user can place there publicly or privately, such as hobbies or videos, information to be uploaded by the user. And there also exists a possibility of locution. Another area is where we see all the messages that come up for the user. In this area, the user can see the different messages that appear and decide to reply or to report something that doesn't seem proper. Messages can not only have text, they can also be composed of other media like photographs or videos. And another area that is for friends is, and here the user can look for new friends or organize friendships, accept or refuse friendships, send messages, share information, etc. And a fourth area would be that related to groups. Groups can be established, generated by the administrator or by users. Some groups can be moderated in the sense that the manager or administrator has to authorize them or make them open or closed. And then based on accessibility for the internet and whether it should be easy and reading should be easy. Simple, clear, intuitive, using colors, using warnings, using scrolls, accompanied by graphic elements that would be important, and there would be requests for confirmation, text, etc. And then there are other aspects such as disorientation. We've tried to avoid having objects or parts, elements that could cause people to get disoriented. Then there's a figure called the network administrator who can control somehow all of the activity on the internet, detecting above all needs of the users who are using the network. And the administrator for this purpose receives emails and makes a follow-up of all the reports of bad use of the network. If there's content that is not proper, that's been denounced by a user, and alarms of massive send-outs can also be followed up, and it can determine why they exist. And as an added value to the network, we are also, we've developed already software for studying log analysis, and all the, just as with normal servers, we have a specific format, and we're storing the log analysis with due privacy.
And we are generating a statistical study about the activity of the network. In a second stage, we pretend to apply techniques of automated learning in order to detect anomalies and to model some way the way it works. And the reports that we are now obtaining are useful for the administrators and for dynamizers. Boreac has implemented a group of dynamizers. This is the activity of this group is now starting, and we hope it goes increasing over time, and we can obtain a critical mass of data so that we can introduce some other techniques that can be more appropriate for this kind of data. We can see the activity level, the kind of objects that have been changed, private, public, if they have used chats, video conferences, if they like them, if they don't like it, and some other aspects, for example, friendships, in order to detect some users that have socialization problems through the network, etc. We are implementing a distribution plan of this project. We think that it could be ready for January, and the objective would be to be able to extend the number of facilities in the network to other institutions, for example, for elderly people. And in order to ease the possibility of providing them the access to the network, we would like to obtain a critical mass of data, more heterogeneous, from different institutions, both in itself and regarding their geographical situation, and this will be made available to people. We could see Gureminsa as a social network. This part of design is important because it increases the affinity of the final users with the tool. It's a network that it's useful for us as a training for another kind of open networks, social networks, and it's an accompanying system for the users in these tools, and it's an added value in the sense of trying to model on an automatic way through data or whatever the behavior of the users in the network. Well, that's all. Thank you very much.
Bueno, como todavía tenemos un poquito de tiempo.
As we still have some time, because Andreas has talked really fast, well, it's normal. If you have any kind of question about the speeches, comments, I don't know if you have to have a microphone. You can make the question. I can repeat it so that they can transcript it. I have a question for the public. Which title should we apply for this workshop? I think it's very interesting, the one that Andres has said about personalization. The personalization, more than a personalization, a customization. This is a word that we get from English. This helps that the potential users can't access to this kind of technology. And people with disabilities many times cannot access to this technology, and people without disabilities don't realize that people with disabilities don't have this kind of privileges. Well, in this kind, I'm a little bit technologist. The part that I've liked the most is the part of Andres, because it's about technology. But the first presentation, in which we have to solve a non-technological barrier, that is knowing a little bit how to customize regarding the different kinds of disability. We don't have to use the technology, it's just just to develop the capabilities of people, and technology won't solve all the problems. Many times it depends more on us than on technology, the way that we should act. I don't know if anyone wants to add something. Well, I'll look on the database of SEDETI and I'll get in touch with you, and we invite you that if you have has been done from Technolead, if you want to get in touch directly with SEDETI, if you want to have any kind of technological development project, so that we can see if it's feasible. Yeah, everything gets in. If it's technology, about technological development, well, we'll be delighted of doing it. It's really great to see this. That's it. Thank you very much for being here now. And the second meeting will start at 5 o'clock. So the moderator is here. Please come here because you have to see the presentation. Thank you very much.